Welcome everybody. Today I'm going to explain step by step how to solve the exercise 5.29. So, here we have the initial statement. This exercise is based on a survey conducted among residents of the San Julián neighborhood in Teruel. A total of 121 residents were surveyed. The neighborhood board launched an advertising campaign exclusively on social networks to promote a new service. They assume that only 40% of residents do not participate in social network. However, since the campaign did not have the expected impact, they want to analyze whether the percentage is actually higher. To answer this question, we will perform an hypothesis test at a 5 significance levels using the sample data. But first, an introductive question. Why are we using statistics? We use statistics to draw conclusions about an entire population based on sample data, especially when it is not possible to collect data from everyone. In this case, we are interested in studying a proportion, specifically the percentage of residents who do not participate in social network. The second step will be the definition of the observed variable. We define the observed variable as follows, being x the proportion of residents who participate in the new service. Our main interest is the proportion of residents who do not participate in social network, because this helps us evaluate whether investing in a social media campaign is profitable. Next, we define the hypothesis to be tested. Here, P represents the proportion of residents who do not participate in social network. So, the null hypothesis will be P lower or equal to 0.4 and the alternative hypothesis will be P higher to 0.4. There is a one-tailed test since we are specifically testing whether the proportion is greater than the 40%. Before performing the hypothesis test, we must verify that the required conditions are satisfied. First, the variable follows a Bernoulli distribution, since it has only two possible outcomes, yes or no. Second, the sample size is large enough. In this case, the sample size is greater than 13, which satisfies the condition. Since both conditions are met, we can proceed with the hypothesis test. To measure the hypothesis, we use a recommander. First of all, we have to import the Excel with specific data. To do it, we have to select data and press import data and from Excel file. We will have to name the data and then press OK. Once the data is imported, we can check below the size of the dataset, and we also enter two statistics, summaries, active data set to see all the relevant information such as the number of people that do not participate in social media, that are 62. Finally, we proceed with the test. For that, we select basic statistics, statistic inference, the hypothesis testing, and inside the hypothesis testing for the proportion. We select the variable participation in social media and change the null hypothesis to 0.4. Also, we have to select alternative hypothesis, being the population proportion higher than the P0. And then we will have the p-value. After performing the calculation, we obtain a p-value of 0.0058. We compare this value with the significance level of 0.05. As 0.0058 is less than 0.05, we reject the null hypothesis. Based on the statistical analysis, we can conclude that the proportion of residents who do not participate in social network is greater than 40% with a 5 significance level. This result suggests that continuing to invest in the project will not be beneficial. Therefore, the neighborhood board should avoid investing more money in the social media-based service.